So I'm just going to begin by paying homage to the Buddha, my root teacher. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So we've just got back yesterday from a couple of days out visiting some of our other monastic sort of siblings. We think of each other as siblings. Two bhikkhunis, so two fully ordained nuns in Olympia at Parayana Vihara, and then also two monks who live in Port Orchard, but are just moving over to North Fork. So in North Bend, sorry, this is California, North Fork. North Bend, near Seattle. And it's been a very, very rich and sort of filling time to be with our sort of monastic siblings and also their communities, and now to be here with this community, this sort of ever-changing and evolving community. It's very enriching to the heart. And at the end of that guided meditation, just reminding us really that we are connected to all living beings. It's just a fact. And our minds like to associate with some and not with others, and exclude some and get really close with others, and that's natural. But but the truth of it is that we're all deeply interconnected in every moment. Those we love, those we don't love, those we don't know. We're all deeply interconnected, and so this quality of this practice of generating this benevolence, loving kindness, starting off with this being, with this one here, this very imperfect one that we start with here. We start with having unconditional kindness for this one, not because of any reason, just unconditionally, and then letting that spread out to those around us. Whether we know them or don't know them, like them or don't like them, it doesn't matter, just letting it spread out. And then it can go all the way, cover every inch of this world and every being on this earth. And it can even go further, it can go out into the cosmos. It's limitless as far as we know. So this quality of metta is a cultivation and a practice, and it's got a potency to it. It's not just a thought. It's not just a thought in the head. May all beings be well. But it's a quality that we generate in our heart, and then we let it spread out, and it affects ourselves, and it affects those around us. It's like it's remembering the goodness in the world. And much of the time we're bombarded, if we watch the news a lot, we're bombarded with the opposite of that, the uninspiring or the frightening and confusing often qualities of certainly of human beings and sometimes of other creatures. And so to intentionally cultivate this quality of loving kindness for all beings, and it creates a brightness in the heart. You start to feel this brightness and openness and sense of connection, and then those contractions that the sense of self naturally has, fear and distrust and maybe like laziness or not wanting to be bothered. There can be this kind of contraction that happens, and then the quality of metta just moves in the opposite direction. It kind of opens things up, and makes things a little bit brighter, and it connects with the love that is here. Really, I like to think of it that way. The natural benevolence that is here that gets forgotten, and so we're sort of remembering it, and we're dusting it off when we do that practice, and also remembering our interconnectedness, because it's so much easier to be an us and a them, and it's very, very deep in our psyche, and many indigenous peoples will have that language actually, that we're the people and they're those other people. There's the people, or the us, or the ones who are here, and then they're those others. And actually, where I come from, if you probably know the country of Wales and Welsh in the UK. So Wales and Welsh are not Welsh words. So they actually mean foreigner. Welsh means foreigner, and that's from the Saxons. So the Saxons would call the Welsh the foreigners, and the Welsh is sort of like, after a while, just took it on. Okay, we'll just wear that, But we know that we're Cymro. We know actually we're Cymro and this is Cymru, but we're not going to be squashed by those terms. And so that's really deep. People do that othering, and yet the Buddha is pointing us to that ultimately there is no other. There is, we're all part of this ongoing, changing, unfolding life process, and how we meet this really matters. And if we don't guide our heart and mind, if we don't train it and guide it and encourage it and remind it of its potential, it will default. Most of us will default into a much smaller way of being, a smaller sense of personhood, and a smaller way of being than we actually could be, than is our potential. So I feel it's very important actually to sort of dust off these qualities, to remember them, and to strengthen them, and to brighten them, and feel that sense of connection. So when I do the practice of metta for all the world, once I get to that point, I have an image of the planet, that we can see as though one was seeing it from space, and then just letting it be bathed with metta, and then all kinds of things are going on that planet Earth. All sorts of stuff's happening, and all kinds of beings and creatures I've never seen and probably never will see, and all sorts of stuff's going on there, and it's just metta for all of that. And it's not separate. I am not separate from that, and it is not separate from me, and we are not separate from each other. We influence each other all the time. So how we use our mind and our heart, how we cultivate our heart and how we use our mind, makes all the difference in the world. And obviously our how we cultivate the mind influences the kind of thoughts that hang out in there. So the way my mind is now and how it was when I was, say, 15 is very different, thankfully, and or even 25, and it's like the way that what I occupy my mind with, and even the language that I use, and the thoughts that I'm willing to entertain and those that I'm not willing to entertain are different to how they were before I started to cultivate the practice. So as we recognize what is wholesome, what is unwholesome, what is beneficial, what is unbeneficial, what leads to greater freedom and what leads to greater entanglement, and once you start to discern those things, then you've got a choice. Do I want to just keep on feeding those unhelpful, unbeneficial, fruitless or even harmful thoughts, or do I want to cultivate the beneficial, the wholesome, the helpful thoughts and intentions? And if we do that, that starts to gain momentum, and so we start to kind of clear out the clutter of those old unhelpful thoughts, and then we make more room for the beneficial, beautiful, inspiring, encouraging, uplifting thoughts, or even just kind and compassionate. And so first of all, we're sort of making more room for the good, for the beneficial, for the wholesome. And then it starts to influence how we live, how we speak, how we think, how we speak, how we act, who we meet, who we're with, who we like to be with. And then we start to create fields or communities of people who are sharing an intention or aspiration to bring up the good. And that's something I really saw over this weekend, and I'm still seeing over this weekend right now, is that how that happens, Just a sec. Yesterday, I don't know how many people there were, maybe there might have been over 100 people gathered as we were going to this new land that the monks that the foundation that supports the monks have purchased, this land, beautiful forest, very, very beautiful, soft, gentle forest over in North Bend. And then just seeing the community and hearing a little bit from the community how, that the shared intention and the coming together to meditate, to explore the spiritual path, the practice, to discuss and to reaffirm ethical intentions and practices, and it's like all of that is just sort of creating this really rich field of goodness, and it's bringing out the goodness in people. And you look at all those people, it's like, probably some of those people were not doing that stuff, a few years ago. They were probably doing very different things, and now it's like, but there's this mutual encouragement and orientation and support, through being together, and just they come together maybe once a week, but it's just there's this lifting up of what is good and beautiful. And I feel like that's so important and so needed, and it's something that it's always been important to me actually from quite a young age, and sometimes I've sort of gone through times of despair and despondency, thinking it's all terrible and the world's a terrible place, and then coming out of that again and seeing, well, it's what we make it actually. So so here we are with this potential to cultivate the good and to generate those qualities of kindness, benevolence and forgiveness. Sometimes we have to have forgiveness for ourselves for being far from perfect, having made mistakes, and then so there's some forgiveness and kindness, and then taking care of the good here in our heart, and sharing it for the benefit of all beings. And there'll be many ways. People have different strengths, different orientations. Some people are very politically minded and have ways of benefiting people through that, or great community organisers, or are able to create art or websites, or there's many things, many ways that we can bring the good into the world, and we'll each have our own ways we can do that, and we each have ways we don't know yet as well that we can do that, so we can stretch it as well. But to not overlook the importance of that. It's not just about sitting back and taking in the information, on the media or in a book or whatever, but it's how are we participating? Yeah. So I feel like the Buddha gives us this opportunity really to take stock of what's going on here in our heart and mind. What are we doing? How are we taking care of this? Whatever karmic inheritance we might have, however we may have started, whatever things may have happened along the way, what are we doing with that? How are we taking care of that, and how are we guiding it in a way that is going to be beneficial to ourselves and to potentially to all beings? or even just some beings, as many as we can. So I really appreciate this gathering, actually, and the coming together and having a chance to practice together and feel the heart. And yeah, so I'm going to stop there.